Welcome back to Amazing Chest. I'm on a quest to beat Elden Ring, playing as every single boss, and my editor is on vacation, so there's no intro today. For this one, the goal is simple. I need to beat the Elden Beast, but the question is whether or not Liurnia can actually do it. Liurnia is an early game region with about 20 bosses, give or take, depending on how you count the Crystallian variants. As a whole, this roster has a lot of potential. We've got 2 glintstone dragons in Smarag and Adula who can carpet bomb arenas from the sky, Electo with a disgusting 17,000 HP and Destined Death, which shreds health bars, and finally the Cemetery Shade, whose teleports and bleed combos have carried us before. If you watched the previous videos in this series, then you already know how broken that little guy is. The region is absolutely saturated with magic damage and high mobility options, which means that we should be able to outmaneuver most physical tanks. We've also got Renala herself waiting in the back with Comet Azure, which, if you know, you know. I am saving her for the finale though, and if we can even make it that far, you'll see exactly why. The problem is, a lot of these bosses are glass cannons. The Crystallians get 2-shot by anything with strike damage, the dragons fold like a lawn chair to thrust weapons, and most of our infantry like the Cleanrot Knights and Bloodhound Knights have 0 passive poise, so one bad trade and they're getting comboed into oblivion. Our run could also be ended at any point by Morgott and Malekith because holy damage bypasses our resistances and Destined Death doesn't care how big your health bar is. That said, we do still have a shot and we're gonna try for any percent because Liurnia just doesn't have the firepower for much else. None of them has what it takes to beat Moog or Melania, which locks us out of all remembrances and the DLC, so let's see if Liurnia has what it takes to beat Elden Ring. Margit might be the first boss of the run, but he can still kill us if we're not careful. When this one started, we went for a charge, but both attacks missed as he went for a jumping slam. Here's the thing though, the Cleanrot Knight can actually use her weapons to block incoming attacks. So we blocked, bashed him, broke his stance, and then spit rot on him 3 times. Margit was now on a clock. He pushed us into a corner, but we pushed back out and he dodged with another hammer slam because of course he did. From there, it was just tanking his hits and letting the rot do its job. Being able to block saved this fight. If you're wondering why I'm starting as the Cleanrot Knight, it's because we want to use the weaker bosses first. These guys will not be much use to us later on, so using them now is going to let us get the most mileage out of each one. My plan for this night was simple. I really wanted to survive the ballista so I could use the same rot and block strategy on Godric. That would actually be huge. Being small helped us out here a lot. I made it past the first line and the second line, then walked around to avoid the mob before coming up on the final staircase and gone. Up next was the Onyx Lord. This guy runs fast and has a back hop that covers a lot of distance, which is exactly what we needed to get past those ballistas. He also has way more health than the Cleanrot Knight and thicker skin to match, so even if we got clipped, he could probably survive it. The back hop let us dodge the first volley. We did get hit by the second and knocked down, but that actually gave us cover from the first ballista reloading. Some soldiers did catch us in a stance break on the way through, but our health was high enough to tank it and we sprinted through the courtyard all the way to Godric's fog wall. Now came the real test. Godric has passive poise just like Margit, so he's not going to be flinching from anything. He also has wind attacks and a dragon arm in phase 2 that give him solid ranged options. We lost our block and our rot, so this was going to come down to whether or not gravity magic and raw damage could get the job done. But first, listen, sleep affects literally everything: your focus, reaction time, mood, and even your immune system. Studies show that just one night of poor sleep can reduce your cognitive performance by up to 40%. That's like going into a boss fight and not casting Golden Vow. Who would do such a thing? What most people don't realize though is that it's not just about how long you sleep, it's about how well you sleep. Light coming in through your eyelids or even a cheap mask can actively disrupt your REM cycles, which is a huge problem because that's when your brain processes memories and actually recovers. That's where this video sponsor comes in, Manta Sleep. The eye cups are fully adjustable. You can position them on your face and get a complete blackout seal, meaning no light gets in whatsoever. They sit raised off of your eyelids, so there's no pressure at all and your eyes can move freely during REM and you can stay comfortable in any position. The build quality is genuinely superb. Trust me, this is an item you definitely want to have in your inventory. Manta Sleep is running a huge tiered sale, meaning the more you spend, the more you save. Alternatively, you can use my link and code in the description for 10% off and join the ProNap movement today. Your brain and body will thank you. We opened with gravity magic, pulling meteors through a portal and crashing them down on Godric. He anticipated this and put up a wind wall, but that doesn't stop meteors. We followed up with a running attack to try and break his stance, but he flipped and knocked us down instead. We had to back hop out as he started doing earthquakes, and by the time we missed the second running attack, he had probably regained all of his stance back. Melee wasn't working, so we backed off and called down more meteors, and that sent him into phase 2. Our speed let us outrun his fire breath, and we found a blind spot during his dragon attack where we could just wail on him with the curved greatsword. One more running attack, and Godric went down. With our first great rune acquired, the roster was holding up better than I expected. Instead of heading straight to Liurnia, we decided to push our luck and go for Radahn. That meant a long run through Caelid, but the Onyx Lord was fast enough to handle it. Probably. Caelid is dangerous, so the plan was to get through as fast as possible. If we lost the Onyx Lord grabbing the medallions, we could at least teleport straight to Radahn with somebody else instead of needing another fast runner. The giant crow started hunting us down immediately, but we lost him by zigzagging through some rock clumps. When we hit the bridge, the trebuchets started firing at us and our speed was put to the test. We went around the side and cleared out the soldiers, but the flamethrowers became a problem. Every hit knocked us down, and we got stuck between the last one and a group of soldiers for a hot second. We pushed through though and eventually made it to the Grace. From there, we grabbed both medallion halves at Fort Height and Fort Ferrith without much trouble, and now it was time for Radahn. The Onyx Lord had made it in one piece, but whether or not he could actually win this fight was a different question entirely. The Onyx Lord was up against the final boss of gravity himself, and we were weaker in pretty much every way. We were smaller and faster, but the plan was to try to use that to our advantage. Radahn has 200 stance, which is the highest of any boss in the entire game. His attacks hit hard and he has massive reach, so trading with him just wasn't going to work. We needed to play it safe. We opened with the meteors and the damage was actually pretty decent. I went in for a running attack, but we were too big to dodge through his swings. Half our health was gone in like 2 seconds, so we backed off and just kept throwing meteors from far away. That's when he started buffing his swords. Usually that means he's gonna do Starcaller Cry and you can get behind him during it and hit him for free while he goes into phase 2. The thing is though, he didn't do the slam. He just turned around and did a combo right in our face. We tried to run, but it was already too late. Say hello to Glintstone Dragon Smaragd, the nuclear option. While Radahn does have Carrion Blood, that doesn't make him resistant to magic, so I was free to blast him with Glintstone Breath from far away and it did some solid damage. He did try to close in on me, but my scales resisted his physical damage, and while dragons are weak to thrust, fortunately Radahn doesn't have access to that damage type. I backed off with a sweeping breath that actually broke his stance, but Smaragd's model is so big that I didn't even see it happen, missing the punish completely. When Radahn flew up for his meteor crash, I flew up too and carpet bombed the arena with fire. He landed right in the middle of it, and as he tried rushing me with meteors, I hit him one more time and the second great rune was ours. I did not want to have to switch to a dragon so early because we only have 2 and they're really slow and kind of awkward to control, but Radahn didn't really give me a choice. The good news is that we're headed to the capital next, and as long as we can make it there safely, then we should be fine. The bad news is that there's a reason I mentioned that thrust damage earlier, and you're about to see exactly why. First, we had to beat the Draconic Tree Sentinel though. His sole purpose in life is to take down dragons. That's literally what he was made for. Smaragd isn't your typical dragon though. Corrupted by Glintstone from eating too many sorcerers, the Sentinel's fire and lightning defenses were not going to be much help against our magic attacks. We flew over the rampart and landed inside the capital outskirts. There's this cut content sprinting animation that dragons have that I was using to get around quickly, and that's when I noticed a problem. The Golem archers were defending the gates. These arrows all deal thrust damage, and it's like they were put there specifically for dragons or something. I got stance broken in 2 hits, panicked, and flew over to the one on the right to take him out. Just as I tried to fly away, the second golem reenacted that one scene from the second Hobbit movie, and this was the desolation of Smaragd. After losing Smaragd, I needed something smaller and faster. The Bloodhound Knight has Bloodhound Step, which made it easy to get past the Golem Archers. I made it to the Stake America and figured I'd go in and see if I could dodge the Sentinel's attacks long enough to kill him. I could not. The first attack knocked me down, and then the Bloodhound Knight got absolutely destroyed. He made it to the checkpoint though, and that was all we needed to bring out the Erdtree Avatar. This guy is the opposite of the Bloodhound Knight. He's slow, he's tanky, he's got passive poise, and he hits hard. The problem though is that we're made of wood, so I was gonna have to stay close to avoid his fireballs. Our heavy swings flinched the Sentinel out of his attacks and we broke his stance in just a few hits. When he went into phase 2, I respawned some golden land explosions, and then I got another stance break. I hit him during the stagger, but it pushed him away and that made him do a fireball which hit us hard. At that point, I decided to go all in. I tanked the Greyhammer Slam and staggered him one more time before finishing it with a stomp. The Erdtree avatar was in. Now that we were in the capital, our next goal was to make it through the city and take out Godfrey. The run through should be straightforward, but Godfrey himself would be tricky. Not only is he a stance breaking machine, but he's also resistant to holy damage, so Golden Land was not going to help us here. That said, our hammer does hit hard, and we basically stun locked the sentinel, so if we could get the first hit, then we might stand a chance. We dropped down from the ramparts onto the rooftops below, and the imps started chasing us. Somehow we parkoured through just fine, which felt kind of wrong for a giant tree. I heard one of them drop down behind us, so I waited around the corner and squashed him just as he came around. That brought us to the Erdtree avatar, who was guarding the next grace, and we were already at half. I opened with a Golden Land into 2 jumping slams, and that staggered him. Got a full 3-hit combo in before he stood back up, and then we just started trading stomps back and forth. I swung for the kill, and just when we needed him the most, he vanished. The Tibia Mariner was up next, and for some odd reason, this boss has insane defense, specifically against other NPCs. To this day, I still have no idea why, but this quirk let us get past the Erdtree avatar and every other enemy for that matter, until we made it to Godfrey. Godfrey's damage against the Mariner was pitiful. The trade-off was that we got our stance broken every 5 seconds. I'd start casting the purple water AoE, he'd flinch me out of it, I'd start again, he'd break my stance. It went back and forth like that for a while, with both of our health bars dropping at the exact same rate. Eventually, I got enough purple water in to kill him, and then we made our way over to Morgott. After surviving Godfrey, I figured Morgott would be easy. His sword attacks are mostly slash damage, which we resist, and our NPC defense was still busted. The only concern was his mobility. If he stayed outside of our water attacks, then we'd never hit him. Before the fight, there was a Black Knife assassin just hanging out by the grace killing finger envoys. I thought I'd corner her and both slam her to death real quick. Bad idea. Her Destined Death projectile does holy damage, which goes right through our NPC defense. I barely drifted to the grace in time. That's when I realized the issue. Holy damage ignores everything we have going for us, and half of Morgott's kit is holy. The first thing he did was hit me with a holy hammer for 1000 damage. I tried to boat slam into the waterfall to break his stance, but it wasn't enough. I turned around to try again, and he just cartwheeled behind me, broke my stance, and threw a holy spear. All of my fears were coming true. His hammer kept flinching me out of my attacks, and then he followed up with a sword spin. There was nothing I could do. Morgott was 1-0, and this was about to get ugly. To try and stop the bleeding, I sent in the Watchdog next. We've used this boss before, and it has a really good track record. Passive poise, 40% holy resistance, and 35% slash. This one was a scepter variant, so I opened up with some glintstones. I walked in and staggered Morgott, but my health was so low that even with good defenses, I was still in danger. Morgott went for his holy sword sprain, but I interrupted it with our signature move and broke his stance instantly. I went for the triple fire breath, which has melted bosses before, but he transitioned so fast that I had to back off. Another slam staggered him again. I got greedy and went for a second one, but he slipped away and slashed us on the way out. I went back in for a stance break, and he threw a spear before finishing us off. Morgott's body count had risen to 2. My next choice was unconventional, but I had a plan. The Spirit Caller Snail can summon Crucible Knights infinitely as long as he stays alive, and he can turn invisible. The idea was to send the Knights in, disappear, and let them do all the work. They were doing decent damage until Morgott hit both of them with a single hammer slam that sent them both into phase 2. The Tree Spear Crucible did her best to stagger him out of his Swords Rain attack, but she died to it instead. The Greatsword Crucible charged into Avenger and died to a tail swipe. I tried to crawl away, but Morgott spotted me through the invisibility somehow and threw a spear. I summoned another Tree Spear to protect me, but he just knocked her out of frame and then killed the snail with holy daggers. Morgott was now 3-0, and I was starting to get worried, but that's when I called in the boys. The Crystallian gimmick is that they're basically immune to damage until you break their stance, and the only thing that breaks them easily is strike damage, which Morgott doesn't have. A big ring blade stance broke Morgott, and while we comboed him, the Mage Crystallian blasted him with a shotgun spell. I tried to walk away from his transition and got knocked down. The Mage outspaced it though, and started casting Crystal Torrent while the rest of us kept the pressure on. Then he went for the Swords Rain, and we both got staggered. Right before he could finish us off though, the Spear Crystallian recovered and stabbed him in the back. Morgott finally went down, and it only took 4 bosses to do it. Godfrey's son did a number on our roster, but we still had 13 bosses left. The Fire Giant was next, and he was definitely gonna gatekeep if we weren't careful. The only real threats on the way were the Knights Cavalry and the Blackblade Kindred. The Cavalry wasn't there because it was probably daytime. You literally can't tell in this area. And when we got to the elevator, I summoned the boys as a distraction and made a run for it. The Kindred killed them both, and then he came after me. His projectiles got stuck in the terrain, and I barely made it to the Grace. We kept pushing through the mountaintops, and I ran into some fire monks. The mage and I were cleaning up the small ones when I heard the Spear Crystallian die behind me. I turned around, and the fire prelate 2-shot me before I could even react. Then he 1-shot the mage. As it turns out, his whip does pure strike damage. Say hello to the most annoying boss in the entire game, at least in my opinion. If there's one thing this wolf is good at, it's surviving, and we cannot afford to lose any more bosses on our way to the fire giant. On paper, the wolf should be able to take him down. Yes, we only had 2000 HP and our damage was low, but you can't hit what you can't see. The wolf was fast and it had a lot of magic. We made it through the bridge in the frozen lake, dodging Borealis on the way since his frost breath would have ended us. We ran through the fire monk camp, climbed up the flame peak, and got squashed by the giant hand right before the grace. The fight began and I dashed under the fire giant's opening attack. I threw out glint blades from a distance and actually stance broke him, but the damage wasn't that great, so I went in for a punish and he rolled on me. Half of my health was gone just like that. I staggered him again with more glint blades and rushed in to pop the fireball that was headed my way. I almost died because I got stuck on a tree, and when I went back in for his ankle splint, he spawned a homing fireball and I had to back off. That's when he did a full 180 and pancaked me. It was time for an actual S tier. With the fire giant down, the Godskin duo was next, and this fight is never easy. They're both aggressive, they hit extremely hard, and they cover each other constantly. This little guy shines in one-on-one fights thanks to his hit and run tactics, but with two Godskins running around, the odds of us winning this were pretty low. As a reminder, we only have 700 HP, so this was essentially now a no-hit run. I teleported past all the enemies and grabbed the Site of Grace. When this fight started, it was exactly what I was afraid of. They stuck to each other like glue, and I couldn't hit them long enough to get a bleed proc. I figured out that this attack has a ton of forward momentum, so I used it to snap to them instantly and then teleport out. I got a bleed proc on the Noble and another one while I was dodging the Apostle's attacks. I rushed in to bait the jump slam, but I got hit instead and I completely mistimed the teleport. Afterward, the Noble finished me off. Alright, hold on, hear me out. If I flood the arena with lava, then I might actually be able to... It was time to fight fire with fire. Electo is the ringleader of the Black Knives and the strongest one by far. She has 17,000 HP because she's technically a late game boss in Liurnia, but the health doesn't even really matter much because she rarely ever gets hit. The Godskins love spamming Black Flame, so I figured I'd respond with a stronger version, Destined Death, stolen from Malekith himself. I'd throw a projectile, dash away when they got close, and then throw another one. It was working great until both of them hit phase 2 at the same time. For most bosses, that's a death sentence. For Electo, it's a Monday. From there, I just kept staggering them over and over. When one died, I slashed at the death animation for extra damage, and when the other respawned, I stunned him immediately. Destined Death let us destroy the Godskins, but now it was time to face its owner. I got through Faramazula without any issues and went straight to the fog wall. The beast clergyman attacked me, and I stunned him with a Destined Death. I slashed at him until he was almost in phase 2, and he swung at me with beast claws. One more hit later, and it was time for Malekith. He canceled his opening attack into his pouncing stance like he always does. I tried to bait the explosion and punish him, but he slipped away. He caught me mid-back hop, broke my stance, and did his full spinning combo for 6,000 damage. I was losing control, so I went for Electo's Destined Death AoE, but he dodged most of it. That's when I gave up on playing it cool and just started spamming Destined Death. I got a few hits after each stagger, but he went for his own projectiles, and that was pretty much it. If Destined Death didn't work, then maybe Ghost Flame would. The Deathrite Bird can cover the ground in Ghost Flame and proc Frost, so my plan was to wear him down over time. The damage was awful though. I'm used to Deathrite Birds that have way better stats in this, but since we're from Liurnia, we barely did anything. I did get a Frost proc which pushed him into phase 2, but when I flew up and used the ritual, it only did 180 damage. He hit me back for a quarter of my health. I flew off again, he threw some projectiles, and that was it. The Royal Revenant was up next, and this is one of the most infamous bosses in this game. I spit some poison trails and then dashed out. When he threw stones, I lunged in, got a multi-hit off, and then staggered staggered him with a slam. That's when I backed out to reapply poison. He caught me on the way out though, and I was already at half HP. Phase 2 began and I lunged past his destined death to spit more poison. I accidentally lunged right into him and he almost killed me for it. He walked toward me for a bit instead of attacking, which was lucky, but the poison ran out and I had to reapply. I dodged his attack, lunged away from his projectiles, and spammed poison as soon as he landed. He started chasing after me, so I started back hopping away, and it was actually working until I hit the edge of the arena. Royal Knight Loretta is a hybrid caster with powerful magic and a halberd. Her main thing is that she can cast spells and back hop at the same time, which is insanely strong as long as she doesn't get caught on a pillar. My spells kept the beast clergyman at bay for a while. He did get a few hits in, but I staggered him with her great bow and pushed him into phase 2. That's when things opened up. I just kept back hopping and casting, and every time he closed the gap, I'd hop away and shoot another spell. He just couldn't keep up. Loretta took down Malekith, and we were back in the game. Get in. Godfrey was the first of 3 bosses standing between us and the end of this run, and with only 3 viable bosses remaining, let's see if Liurnia has what it takes to beat Elden Ring. I opened with Glint Blades and a few casts of Loretta's Mastery. He staggered, but the damage wasn't great, so I got a Loretta Slash off and hopped away from his Earthquake. At some point, I got backed into a corner but managed to dodge his Axe Throw and readjust. A few more Masteries got him close to his next phase, and I got ready to jump over his Regal Roar. He did an Earthquake behind me instead, and I wasn't looking at him. 2,000 damage out of nowhere, so I panicked, back hopped into a wall, and got hit by his arena-wide stomp. The next stomp staggered me, and that was it. Loretta was down, and it was time to bring out our second nuke. Mr. President, a second dragon has hit the capital. Glintstone Dragonadula was our answer to Godfrey, and in case you're unaware, dragons can fly. That means we could just stay in the air while he spammed earthquakes down below. I used a hovering breath attack to stay airborne and roasted him through phase 1. When Hoarlu came out, I had to be careful because his explosion can actually hit dragons in the air. Every time he roared, I just flew to the other side of the arena. A few more breaths and he went down, and Adula was able to beat Godfrey. Rodigan was up next, and we finally had enough space to use her Moonblade attack. That's when I noticed Rodigan was spamming projectiles over and over with pinpoint accuracy every single time. At one point, I think he even parried Adula's Glintstone Breath, and that's when I knew we were cooked. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And although we still had 4 bosses left, Renala was the only one capable of winning this fight. These two actually met on the opposite sides of a war. They fell in love, got married, and ended the entire conflict. My only concern was the sorcery parry. Rodigan held his arm up the entire time against Adula and blocked everything. If he did the same thing here, then this run was over. If I kept throwing out decoy projectiles, then he'd be stuck in his animation and he shouldn't be able to parry anything else. I tested out my theory, threw out the decoys, and then fired Comet Azure. It worked. He went for his phase 2 slam, and I used Renala's Full Moon for the iframes. He caught me on the way down, but I recovered nicely and went back to casting. Rodigan did his best to block everything, but there was just one thing he couldn't block: Zoltrak. With her ex-husband defeated, the only thing standing between us and finishing this run was a god. If you like this video, then like the video and don't forget to subscribe because YouTube doesn't always recommend.
Bye-bye.